Hey, welcome back to the Common Ground North Dakota podcast. I'm Heather.
And I'm Jen.
I've been a chef for 10 years.
And I'm a registered dietitian. We've all heard the saying, farm to table. But what if the conversation was table to farm?
Join Jen and I as we sit down with ag experts to dig in and find out more about North Dakota agriculture. All right, welcome back to Common Ground North Dakota podcast. I'm Heather.
I'm Jen.
And we're in studio for another episode.
Yes, they're always exciting. I feel like we learn many new tips, information about just North Dakota agriculture. And then I feel like our consumers learn a lot.
Yes.
From our episodes.
Yes.
Fun facts, I call them. Things that we've never learned before.
I wonder what we're going to learn today. And I'm excited because we have our guest in studio.
I know. I love in studio.
Me too.
And I even wore pink for the occasion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this a hint?
I think so. So
Okay.
We're talking about swine.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Swine.
And did you know my dad raised hogs?
You mentioned that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I remember a story about my sister raising the runt called Stinky.
Oh.
Yeah. My dad's like, well, if you come out with chores and feed Stinky, he'll be yours and you can sell him. So
she did it?
She did it. Yep. Stinky survived.
I wish we had a picture we could show of
I know.
you and Stinky when you were little.
I know. She even had the little leash that she'd made. Anyway, long story. I'm sure that's not what we're going to talk about today.
But we are talking about swine.
Yes. So we have an expert
Chris
in-house.
Berg.
Bird. Like the animal.
Thank you. Bird.
Yep, that's it.
And what is your official title?
I am an assistant professor of swine research and teaching at North Dakota State University.
Okay. Now, can I say pig instead of swine?
You can. That's what I say too.
That's
But
acceptable.
would you know if I walked in to the swine unit and I said pig, would you know immediately she doesn't know what she's talking about?
No, I know
No.
exactly. If you say pig, I think we all have a pretty good idea.
Okay.
I tend to say pig as well. You
Okay.
might hear hog out there.
sure.
Yes.
Swine.
Sure.
Yeah, all of them. Are they used interchangeably in your department?
Not necessarily, but
Okay.
pig's good.
Okay.
I say pig too.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Swine does feel more official though.
It does.
It does.
And so
Yeah.
you work in the swine unit.
So I work in the Department of Animal Sciences.
Okay.
But my appointment is swine research and teaching. And so basically everything I do, I spend my entire day thinking about pigs, doing research with pigs, teaching about pigs. And so I spend a lot of time at our swine unit, which is our farm. Our
okay.
swine farm. It has a big,
Okay.
it also has an official name, the NDSU
Yes.
Swine Research and Teaching Center.
Wow.
But it's
We
just
call
a
it the-
farm. Because in my mind, it was like a surgical unit. No, it's not.
It's a swine farm.
It's a swine
and
farm.
we have the capability to do some of those things. We have surgical units at some of our other facilities, but
Okay.
the swine unit itself is a working swine farm.
That's
farm.
so cool.
Yeah.
So how many swine do you have there on an average basis?
Yeah, so right now we have, and this is something that maybe we'll get into in a little while, but we have the capability to have somewhere around, it depends on the phase, but I guess, I don't know, maybe I should explain the swine unit
we
to you.
need to know.
Yes.
And time out. Can you also, how did you get here, Chris?
Right.
Like, how did you...
What's your story?
How did you get into this field?
Yes, I did not ever expect to be working in this field at all. So I grew up in Iowa, which there are
corn
pigs
and hogs,
there
right?
Are,
I feel like
there are pigs there, and there is
Okay.
corn, and I grew up surrounded by it. But my life was not an agricultural life. I didn't grow up with an agricultural background. I didn't grow up on a farm. I was actually, as a young kid interested in music.
Okay.
And so I always thought of myself as growing up to be in a famous band and having my own record store.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
And so here I am.
Henry,
took
if
a
you're
turn.
listening,
I did,
I think
yeah.
Chris could be in your band.
There's still time. I mean,
There's
still time.
There's still time. And maybe when I retire, I
Right,
love what
right.
I'm doing. But so I didn't ever expect to be doing what I'm doing. But I also started college as a business major thinking I could own a record store. I could go on tour with my
Yes.
friends and play basements for the rest of my life. And
Sure.
then I
100%.
quickly found out that that's probably not how I want to spend my entire life, from here on out. I wasn't very good at business classes, so don't ask me to sell a car for you. But one thing that I did love was being around animals, and that was small animals.
Okay.
You know, in my life, I had dogs and cats, and I also would dog sit.
Nice.
And so I think knowing that I wasn't going to be a big business person that owned a wonderful record store, I decided to kind of take a leap and see if I could do veterinary school. And so to do that, you've got to get an undergraduate degree.
Yep.
And so I went to Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa, and started as an animal science major. I not quickly, but within a year or so, realized that, you know, I enjoyed some of the research experiences that I was getting there, but didn't necessarily know where I fit in.
Okay.
Given that I didn't have large animal experience, but I was becoming kind of more interested in that world. And I had a really good research opportunity with some researchers there that focused on what we call animal welfare science.
Okay.
So, which, you know, isn't necessarily a traditional area of animal science.
Yeah.
It's not nutrition. It's not reproductive physiology. But I could see myself in it. You know, how can we improve the way that we care for our animals so that they have good welfare, so that, you know, they're healthier, and also so that they're continuing to produce whatever they're producing.
Right.
You know, milk for dairy cows, meat for pigs,
Yeah.
and beef cattle. And so I was very interested in those opportunities, and that took me to graduate school at Purdue in Indiana.
Okay.
And I basically got all the experience I needed to study what I study now, and that brought me to NDSU.
That's so great. So that one research project
Yeah.
about animal well-being.
Yeah. So it was a great experience. I've got a mentor there. I'm going to name drop her, Suzanne Millman at Iowa State
Love it.
University. Really did a lot for my future, you know, in terms of giving me opportunities to experience what it can be like to work in the animal research world.
That's great.
So, yeah.
So animal welfare.
Right,
How
so-
do you know? Heather and I were talking about that and like just thinking of questions we wanted to ask you. It's almost like you're a wellness provider for animals.
And how do the
which I'm
swine...
totally into. That's my area.
Can you tell by like their aura? You know,
Yeah, well,
like if
I
they're
can't-
having a bad day.
I'm very bad at assessing auras, that's for sure. But there are certain things that we can look at, you know. I guess I should say that I'm very interested in this in stress, you know, and so we're familiar with that as humans.
Yes.
You know, we stress if the stress that we experience can have a major effect on our health,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Our well-being, and then for animals, it can actually reduce their ability to produce whatever they're producing. And so we can look at different aspects of their behavior, different aspects of their physiology, whether or not they're growing at a certain rate, to get an idea of, you know, the way that we're handling them or housing them.
Okay.
You know, we can improve it and we can make it better so that they are healthier, they are better taken care of.
Okay.
And so they, you know, ultimately produce those products that we need them to produce.
So I have another question about that. So I think of like when I raise livestock, like pigs, horses, cows, they all had a leader. Like there was a pecking order.
Yeah.
Like do you find that affects the welfare of those that maybe are lower on the chain? Because I always knew. Like you could go into a pasture and you knew who the head cow was because they would come up first and then everybody would follow.
Yeah.
Horses are the same thing. They would eat first and then the other horses would follow.
Yep.
Do you find that to be true with swine?
Yes.
Too?
Yeah. Social hierarchy is kind of a big deal in our world. So right now, the industry in general is moving toward what we call pen gestation systems. So sows, which are mama pigs, when they're pregnant, they traditionally were housed in individual stalls by themselves throughout their pregnancy.
Yeah.
And the reason for this was that you could kind of keep track of them. You could make sure that they were healthy, that they were eating. But, you know, they're also social animals.
Right.
And so
isolating for them.
I mean, they're next to each other,
Okay.
but yes, they're social animals. They want to be around each other. They want to be able to move and perform behaviors that they're highly motivated to perform. And so the industry has gone towards pen systems where they're housed together.
Really?
Yeah. And that creates
That's so cool.
challenges with that social hierarchy, you know, where you do have a pig or two that are very high up in that social hierarchy, and then you've got pigs that are lower down. And so when you first mix them together, there's fighting and aggression that occurs. And then even when that kind of subsides, it's natural to create a social hierarchy, a pecking order. So that fighting, eventually, most of it subsides. But you do have competition for resources. So competition for getting to the feeder and those types of things can have an effect on those animals that are lower down.
Okay.
And so some of the work that we've done at our current swine unit, we have all pen gestation right now, is looking at different technologies that we can utilize to actually characterize that social hierarchy. So then it's not quite there yet. We're just doing the research, but eventually the idea would be, could you use technology to automatically or quickly tell a producer, this is a basic idea of what your hierarchy looks like.
Okay.
These animals are lower down on that totem pole, so make sure that you're keeping track of them and make sure that they're eating, because make sure that they're getting access.
A farmer doesn't have all day to sit and watch and see who's who.
That would have been my job.
Quickly assess.
Yes, that's what you do.
And then tell you.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And so if we can use technology to do that, that would be hopefully usul for a producer.
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
Yes. Because we definitely picked out those sows that they're the top pig.
You can see it. That's for sure.
And I can see where the lower ones would need probably special attention to make sure especially if there's competition for the feed.
Right.
And then, they would eat, but then maybe there's just leftovers and then they're maybe not growing or getting enough nutrition to support their babies,
growth.
Right?
Yeah, their growth and their babies' growth, of course. Yeah.
Oh, that's so interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Heather.
I was wondering, what else are you working on over at the swine unit?
So we are also, we just completed a study, and actually this study started back a little ways, but we are also looking at early life experience for pigs. So trying to reduce their, stress when it comes to the transport process at market weight.
Okay.
And so this is basically an idea that some collaborators that we had at NDSU previously came up with, and I kind of came in and was handed this wonderful project where when piglets are young, so after they're weaned from their mom, they go into what's called the nursery phase. And the nursery phase is basically they're not nursing, obviously. They're getting used to eating solid feed, and so it can be a pretty stressful experience for them at that phase.
Sure.
And so what we're doing is we're giving them access to this ramp. The small ramp structure as a means to train them for the future.
Yep.
But then also, is it possible to use that ramp as increased complexity within their environment? Kind of as a source
to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of as a source of environmental enrichment as well.
Interesting.
That's cool. So it's a really cool study. And what we've found, at least on the market weight side, is that if you give these nursery pigs, they're 3 weeks of age.
Okay.
And you give them access to the ramp until they're 9 weeks of age.
Okay.
You take the ramp out.
Yep.
After that, let them grow out to market weight until they're 5.5 months old or so. They seem to remember the experience of the ramp, and the amount of time it takes them to go up a ramp onto a trailer is greatly reduced. And we may not think about it, but just the act of going up the trailer, if you haven't been exposed to it, can be stressful. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So you're trying to have them learn behaviors and associate them with positive experiences.
Yeah,
so it's I've seen this before. It's no big deal.
Yeah, you reduce novelty, of
the
experience. And then the last thing, sorry, I won't keep going on with
all
my
I love
projects.
This is great.
why we're here.
I love to
Great
talk about
information.
it. Has to do with castration.
Okay.
So in the industry, we castrate our male pigs, and there are some reasons for it. One, reduces aggression. Two, as they get towards market weight, they are getting to sexual maturity, and so we want to reduce the likelihood of unwanted breeding or mating.
Okay.
Yeah.
But also, if you don't castrate boars, the boys, a lot of times that will have an effect on how the meat tastes.
Really?
Yes. And
How so?
Basically, when boars get to sexual maturity, they produce these chemicals or these substances,
and it
basically
affects the flavor.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
And so that's why we do it.
Okay.
But it is a painful procedure for a little bit. It is surgical castration. And so for a long time in the industry, we've been trying to find new ways that we can actually reduce the pain that they experience. And so we're doing some work there looking at natural products,
Okay.
Specifically oleic acid. So taking oleic acid, which is basically an oil, turning it into a gel. And we're doing this as a collaboration with some individuals at NDSU who know what they're doing when it comes to creating gels. And basically taking that gel, applying it, and we're going to see if it'll actually reduce the pain that they experience. Because what we've found is that those, or I guess not we, but previous research in rodents has shown that oleic acid can inhibit some of the receptors involved in pain perception.
Okay.
So that's probably more information than you want.
No, that's interesting.
Yeah, I would have never guessed.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's another project that we're currently working on right now.
And I like that it's twofold, that you're thinking of the animal, but then also it's that end product too.
Absolutely.
Because taste is so important. And so I'm wondering in terms of like when the pigs are stressed, right? Because I've heard this before, like if they're stressed before they go to be butchered, that there's a difference in taste then as well. Is this true?
It can have an effect on their meat quality.
On the meat quality.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, I mean, anytime an animal is stressed, if they're not used to going up on a trailer, you can have, bruised muscle. You can have what we call blood splashed hams, which is not a...
Don't want that.
No, it's not as gruesome.
No.
No, that wouldn't sound good on a menu.
No. Welcome. Blood splash? No.
On special. Okay.
So it does have an effect on meat quality,
right.
which can have an effect on taste, obviously. And so we want to, I think everybody has a vested interest in reducing stress as much as possible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what students are in your classes?
So I mainly teach undergraduate animal science students.
Okay.
So the Department of Animal Sciences at NDSU, we kind of have 3 degree programs.
Okay.
You could come to NDSU, be an animal science student and focus on equine science. You could focus on animal science, which is kind of this traditional livestock production track. And then also if for students that are interested in veterinary technology, so not necessarily the veterinarian, but the people that work with the veterinarian. You could think of it as maybe the equivalent of a human nurse.
Sure.
We've got a 4-year veterinary technology program as well.
You
That's
do?
great.
Yes. Yeah.
I may be interested.
Yeah, there you go. Come back to school,
My
right?
You need one more job, don't you, Jen?
I do.
Yeah, there you go. Come on back.
She already has 5, but let's make it 6.
It's fine.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So I teach all of those students. Most of the students that I have are animal science students. Like I said, I teach one class that's required domestic animal behavior and management. And so that's where students learn about behavior. And so all of the animal science students will come through that class when they're a sophomore or junior. And then I teach a capstone level swine production pork industry systems class. And that is the class for senior level students that are interested in swine production.
Okay, so they want to become a hog farmer.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, or go and work in the industry or, go into the veterinary world and focus on large animals.
Okay. And how is that industry changing from when you started to now this class you have? What changes have you seen?
The swine industry itself? The swine industry is always changing, I would say.
Like technology, is there more technology involved?
There's a big emphasis on precision technology right now. I don't know how much is being implemented actually in the industry yet. We're still kind of on the research side when it comes to precision technologies, but there's a lot of emphasis in that. And really in this whole North Dakota region, it seems like there's a lot of interest in technology.
We hear it a lot.
Yeah, and that's one thing that I love about North Dakota Ag.
Yes.
Is that they are pretty forward thinking when it comes to technology. We've got some challenges in the swine industry that, in terms of labor, it's kind of hard to fill our barns and find people to care for the animals. And so technology can aid in that way.
Right.
But I would say that that's an exciting aspect of the swine industry that's changed. But I would say that we're always changing. There's going to be some other big changes, I think, that we'll see. I don't know if you've talked about Proposition 12 at all on your...
No, tell us.
So Proposition 12 was basically a proposition in California that was voted on by the citizens of California, where animals that are produced in the United States, if they want to sell their product to California, have to meet certain standards in terms of housing. And so swine are part of that, And so
how new is that?
Not super new.
Okay.
You know, it was voted on a few years ago, but just recently, within the past year or so, was
That's
it
tough, because that's a big
law of the
market,
land.
right?
Yeah, I think 15% of the
Wow.
pork industry
Okay.
or pork products go to California.
Wow.
And so we're going to continue to see some of those
Yeah.
changes. The biggest one being space allowances for sows during gestation.
Okay.
And
Which
so-
it's already, we heard like the cost to build a facility to be a hog farmer is so high. So then to make it even larger, that's
Yes. Yeah.
That's not easy.
It's a huge challenge. It's a huge challenge.
It reminds me of like when I'm touring our new health system. So I work for Altru as well as at the foundation. And I was just at the hospital and we were touring the labor and delivery floor. So
Yep.
like equating it to that.
Yeah.
And now they're ginormous.
Right.
Like,
it is
Suites.
nice having those big rooms.
Yeah,
so
that's
you
true.
need birthing suites for your spine.
I know.
I can maybe help you, Chris.
You know,
I have some good
design
architects I
input. Yeah,
work
that'd be great. Yeah, and this is really just looking at when they're pregnant. You
Sure.
know, and so we've at the swine unit, NDSU swine unit, we've kind of already transitioned to that.
Okay.
Maybe the space allowance isn't quite as big as it will need to be, but the research that we're doing at the NDSU swine unit is relevant for those changes that we're going to see in the industry.
That's
here in the
great.
future.
So they already have birthing suites.
So yeah,
Kind of.
yes, but they're not the same as maybe if you were to go into the health center.
They're pig worthy.
Yes, they're a little different, but they work
I
for
love
sure.
it.
Yes,
I love it.
Yep.
It's so interesting, just like the different areas that you can study within animal
Right.
science,
Oh,
and like you can specialize like you do with swine, and like how many factors really play into like the care, the health of the animal, and then like how it affects everything, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's huge. You know, it takes a whole army of people to be able to make sure that our animals are kept well.
Absolutely.
You know, you've got nutritionists, repro physiologists, you've got welfare scientists, you've got all kinds of people. And I'm just on the science side. Sorry, I'm a little biased towards scientists. That's what
I love that.
comes to mind
No,
here.
that's
But
great.
you've got all kinds of people that are required in order to raise your animals well and to produce a good product. So, yeah.
So then how is your research spread then to the producers in North Dakota? How does that all work? Do they ever call you and say, "Hey Chris, what
Do you
are
have
you
a
studying
newsletter?
there?"
How do you get it to them?
Sometimes I get calls. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So traditionally at North Dakota State University, so we are a land grant school. And so we kind of have this land grant mission. It's kind of the three-legged chair or whatever, where we are responsible for teaching students in the classroom,
Okay.
producing research and conducting research that's relevant to the stakeholders in the state.
Okay.
And then also serving our citizens through what we call cooperative extension programs. So we actually have within the department extension specialists
Okay.
that go out and teach about what we're doing at NDSU and
Okay.
provide that information to the producers.
That's great.
You know, I don't have an extension appointment,
Okay.
meaning that most of my time is not spent doing extension programming. But I guess a very exciting development in the department is that we will have an extension
cool.
specialist that's specifically focused on swine.
Okay.
That's
That's
awesome.
starting in June. And so we're extremely excited to have that person come and do a much better job of going out to the state and the stakeholders and talking about what we are actually doing at North Dakota State University. So
Right. I
it's
mean,
kind
you
of
can't do it all. You can't
No.
teach the students, do the research, and be the one to go out. So you need that position.
I mean, just talking with the extension specialists in my department, they are so busy all the time.
Yes.
Sure.
You know, and it's a huge job all by itself. And so, no, I wouldn't necessarily have the time to dedicate to what I think is required for a good
Right.
extension program.
Yeah.
So that's why we're excited to have someone come
That's
in.
great. What
Yeah.
a good resource.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah. So we're
absolutely. Oh, so many. I'm
So
like,
I want to get back to like the well-being part. Okay. So now that you've worked with hogs for a long time, like, do you feel like you have, like, you can walk in and you can kind of tell what's going on?
In terms of like the individual pig.
Yeah.
I mean, they're behaviorally, you can look at their behavior. and get an idea. You can look at different aspects of, their body condition, how they're walking around, how they're interacting with the other animals around you. But I would say that it's pretty tricky. Like you were saying previously, when it comes to social hierarchy, a producer doesn't have 4 hours to sit there and say, over time, of course, you can start to identify which ones. But a lot of these things that we want to look at are required, hours of looking at behavior. And so that's where my interest in precision technologies comes in. And so could you utilize technology on the farm to automatically assess well-being of individual animals? So yeah, there are certain things, but it can be pretty difficult. And I think that honestly, I should say too, someone that is working with the pigs every single day, all the time, could probably do a better job than I could. That's for sure.
Because you're doing a lot of research and you're in the classroom
and so interesting, like to see how we're leveraging technology and how it affects the animals. And I think it's great.
Yeah.
What other precision ag things do you have up your sleeve?
So right now, and this is right now at our swine unit at NDSU, we have a little bit of precision technology that we can use that's fairly standard, at least on the swine or on the sow side in the industry. So our sows have ear tags that have RFID.
Oh, I was going to ask.
Yep,
do you scan them?
Well, they do.
And then they get food?
Yeah, exactly.
You badge in?
Yep. Yeah, they do.
Oh, it's like their lunch number?
Yeah, kind of.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it.
All right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So they're called electronic sow feeders, and they're in each of because remember, they're all housed together now. And so they have these individual stalls where sows, the mama pigs, will enter into the stalls. It'll read their ear tag.
Yes.
And then it'll dispense their feed.
Okay.
And the amount of feed that they're supposed to have for that day. And we can utilize all that data comes to us. So we can utilize that data for in different things that we want to look at. When I talked about characterizing that social hierarchy earlier, that's a big help for us,
Who goes first or who goes last?
Who scans
exactly. Yes. Yeah.
My dog, if we had precision for my dog feeding, I know Holly would be there like trying to badge in every hour.
Who tries to scan twice?
And they do.
They do?
They do. They'll go in a lot and they'll try and
they'll try
get more
badge in.
feed. They might sit in there for a long time and you'll have a long line of sows waiting to eat. So you got to get them out.
Betty, it's not your time.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. You've already eaten at midnight. So so that we have a little bit of that at the current unit.
Awesome.
We are right now trying to renovate and expand our current swine unit.
Okay.
And so as one aspect of that, we would like to implement a number of new opportunities or different abilities to study precision agriculture and different technologies.
So you're in the process of that right now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So for about the last year and a half or so, we've been trying to identify, different sources of funding so that we can renovate our current facility. So the current facility was built, I think, in 1983.
Oh, wow.
It's older than I am. So I don't know what it was like in 1983, but maybe I'm just stepping into the past, when I step into the unit. I shouldn't say that. We've done some good renovations since I've started there. But so it's time. Swine production, commercial production looks very different now than it did in 1983. And some new capabilities that are, I guess, do a better job of providing students with an experience that's going to be what they're going to experience when they go into the industry. It'll allow us to do some research that is very industry relevant.
Cool.
And so, for the past year and a half or so, we've been trying to do that.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And can people swing by the swine flu and check it out?
The swine flu?
Or the swine flu? That's not what I meant to say.
Hopefully there's no swine flu.
The swine unit.
In general, yes, so you don't come by if you have
daisies. Not that. Can I come if I don't mention?
In general, if you're sick, please don't. But it is a university farm.
Okay.
And we have a manager who manages it, and it is. I should say, it is open to the public. You might want to arrange that you can actually go.
But it is open to the public.
Like you could schedule a visit to come in.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, you could schedule to come in, and we're always very open to people coming and visiting.
So prospective students.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and we do. We have prospective students that go to all of our animal
check it
units
out.
and go and check it out.
That's neat.
Students that are coming in want to see that they have, or that they're going to have good hands-on opportunities in their classes.
Absolutely.
And what does that look like?
Right.
And so we're always open to that.
Oh, that's great.
Cool.
Yeah. So they can,
Great.
yeah, that's a university.
Kind of want to see it.
I know. We always want to.
Right.
We'll add it to our road trip list.
I'll give you Greg's number. You can call him up, and that's our swine manager.
Greg.
Yeah. Yes.
Chris mentioned that you might want to give us a tour. If you're listening,
Yes.
call our
We'll be
people.
there.
Yep.
We've learned a lot. Like we
Yes.
usually do. This doesn't surprise me. Do you think it's time to show Chris our trophy?
Okay, Chris, we've got a corn trophy here that's up for grabs. We tied last time, I think.
Yeah, we did. Look.
Yeah.
J
Jen had been on a
H.
roll. So you came with some questions for us.
I have questions.
All right.
Fab. Let me get our board. So what we do, you ask us 3 questions, and then Heather and I, after each one, we'll venture a guess, and whoever's closest will get a point.
Okay.
So, whenever you're ready, you can
First
ask
question.
What is it?
How many pigs live in North Dakota?
It's a lot. I'd say
us. I feel like this is low.
50,000.
100,000.
150,000.
Wow. Okay.
You're close. Good.
And
Yay!
does that number go up every year? Does it stay about the same?
So that's our general inventory of, at any one time,
Sure.
you've got about 150,000 pigs.
Okay, that's significant.
It's gone up a little bit in the past couple of years. I would say that, but we produce a lot more pigs. So Tamara Hines was on a few weeks
Yes,
ago.
she was.
And she talked about how we were a sow state.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we've got a lot of mama pigs. They
And then we
produce
ship 'em
piglets,
off.
and then they go.
Yeah.
So we produce around, and we call it the pig crop.
Okay.
About just under 1 million pigs every year. But if you look at the pigs that are our inventory that live here, basically
Yeah.
it's about 100.
Resident
But
pigs.
that's a big
Resident
pig
pigs.
crop.
It
A
is.
million?
It's a lot of pigs.
Okay.
A lot of pigs.
All right.
Ready?
Yep.
Yes.
Number 2.
Question 2. How many pounds does a full-grown market pig weigh?
I'm gonna,
Okay. I got to go back to my youth here.
400. We both said
yeah.
400.
280 to 300 pounds.
Oh, we were thinking of the big mamas.
Yeah.
Big mamas
Bigs.
get to be 400 or 500
bigs.
Okay, so
pounds.
it's about half
and they
that.
are big.
You know.
Ready?
Yep.
Yes.
Third question. This is a behavior question.
Oh, okay.
If you fill a sow's pen with straw 12 hours before she gives birth, what will she do with it? A mama pig. Obviously, she's giving birth, so.
I mean, I'm going to say eat it because I was so hungry before.
Nest in it.
She might eat it, but she's definitely going to nest
Oh,
in it.
shoot.
Create a nest. Yep.
Gosh, I would have just had a little
Yeah.
snack before.
I started writing eat, but you know
Yeah.
that's the nature of
Yeah.
our work. We're like, well, they're gonna eat it. I'm like, well,
Good
Awesome.
questions.
Good.
well, hey,
Who won?
thanks for
Jen.
helping me
Jen.
win.
That's right. You got 2. That's right.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
I attribute it to my history with hogs.
Yes.
My hog history.
Grew up with that. That was really interesting.
Thanks for having me.
There was lots of good information there.
I know. I love the badge like that.
Yes.
That is gonna blow the mind of our listeners and
I feel like
all
I
my
might,
friends.
and put a couple of those on my kids just
There you
to,
go.
right?
So they can
Just
check in
scan
every
it.
once
I
in a
know
while.
how many snacks they're having.
Scan in.
Yep.
And I know.
My kids are always stealing snacks
Yes.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, why aren't you eating supper? How
been
many
steal-
Nutella sandwiches did you have? We have one final question that we ask everybody, Chris. So we always hear like the favorite part of working in North Dakota agriculture is the people. But are there things that specific to your role that you really love about being involved in North Dakota agriculture?
And specific to my role, yeah. I mean, I absolutely love interacting with the students that come into my classrooms.
Love it.
A lot of them may not necessarily have a background in swine, just like I didn't.
Okay.
But for a chunk of them, you can start to see that interest really grow over time. And that's really exciting to see. And I would also say that I do really enjoy the people.
Right.
Love it.
You can't help but say it. They're just great.
Yeah.
It is
We
just,
agree.
Yep.
I feel like we're just affecting North Dakota tourism and like people wanting to move here just
Yes.
through this podcast because every single person
Says
says
that.
something about the people. So I love it. I love it.
And I, if I can, expand a little bit.
Yes, of course.
I just want to say that, for me, not being from North Dakota, not being a traditional animal scientist, there have been a lot of people that I've met and I've interacted with through the years that are involved in agriculture that have been very welcoming to me.
That's awesome.
And so I am very
That's good
thankful
to
for
hear.
that.
We're
Yeah.
glad we
Yes.
stole you from Iowa.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I feel like you're going to be that mentor that you had.
Yep.
And we're going to just have all these great researchers and pork
Yes.
producers. So
Yep.
we're happy to have you here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Yes,
Chris.
thanks for
Appreciate
coming
it.
in.
Yep. Thanks.
Ooh,
Okay, so now I want pigs again.
you should get a
And
couple.
I now want to go back to school. It's just so fascinating.
I love that they're researching all of that. I had
Yes.
no idea that we were paying attention to the well-being. That makes me happy.
Yes, it does. And it should make our listeners, consumers happy too, that we are studying those things that are important to them.
Yes.
And I'm sure that's a question.
Right.
Some may not know where hogs come from or where your pork chops come from. And like, yes, we do pay attention to like how they live,
Yes.
how they're raised, like how much they're feeding. So we're not just going to let little Stinky like
Right.
starve. They're badging in to get their
Yes.
meals, which is cool.
There's so much that goes into it
I know.
before we're grilling that pork chop.
For sure. And they're tasty.
Yes. Yes.
They're tasty, just like Tamara had told us.
Now we're craving pork again.
I know, so many. Pulled pork is my favorite.
Yes.
What's your favorite pork?
I mean, I like ground pork. I like a nice pork loin.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll eat it all.
Same. Same. I remember, funny story before we close out. I remember going to a dietitian conference. I probably told you this. And everybody, when I was a student, everybody around me was ordering salad. And, they came to me last and I was at the head of the table. I'm like, I'll have the pulled pork sandwich.
Just a hush fell over the table.
Yeah, it did. And then I'm like, what? You got to support the pork producers.
Yes. And it's delicious.
It is.
And
It
it's good
is.
for you.
Yep.
High in protein.
Still love the pulled
Yes.
pork. Yeah. So
Might have that for dinner.
I know. Well, until next time.
Yes. You can listen to us everywhere you listen to podcasts. You can find us on YouTube if you want to watch us.
Yep.
And tune in next time for the latest episode.
Thanks for watching.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in to the Common Ground North Dakota podcast. Make sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Most importantly, send us your questions about North Dakota agriculture by visiting our website. You might win a prize. We'll see you in the next episode of the Common Ground North Dakota podcast.